When we do first drives abroad of cars that have yet to reach Singapore, it's normally in very short isolated bursts, probably a few hour intervals or maybe 1 to 2 days to give us a first look at the car. For these feline friends that are coming to Singapore soon, however, we are going to be doing things a little differently. The time now is 7:30 something AM and we are currently at a Great Wall Motor partner store in Bang Nam, about 40 kilometers southwest of central Bangkok, and we are at the start point of a 4,000 kilometer EV convoy tour that will take us across Thailand, Malaysia and Singapore. We are going to be visiting 15 cities along the way, going to experience some charging facilities, doing some sightseeing, so I'm really excited to get this trip going, and without further ado, let's jump into it! The feline friend in question, of course, is the Ora good cat. At risk of sounding repetitive, it's really not often that we get to hit the road for 7 days and do it across 3 countries too. So, while you've probably clicked on this video expecting a full review of the Ora good cat, and we will ultimately give that to you, pinky promise, we also want to take you along with us as we take the route less travelled even for a Bangkok to Singapore road trip. To start off in the land of smiles, Thailand after all, it's much more than just Bangkok. What other sights are hidden within the country south? How is charging an EV like here? What good food can you expect on a road trip? What problems do we face? And why is this one particular area so obsessed with chickens? Let's answer the second question first. With the speed limits here raised to 90 km per hour on open roads and 120 km per hour on the motorway, we move south immediately amid some heavier traffic and arrive quite quickly at our first stop. If you've observed these stickers and wondered what on earth EGAT could stand for, one of the main partners GWM has managed to rope in for this convoy is the Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand. About 100 km from our starting point, our first checkpoint for the trip is its Elex branded charging point. The most instinctive reference points that come to mind for us in Singapore are the Shell Recharge charging stations. In Thailand, you'll mostly find Elex's charging stations serving the country's motorways, situated within the local PT gas station. Our good cats in Thailand are capable of a maximum charging speed of 60 kilowatts with a DC charger, with which their 63 kilowatt-hour batteries will go from 0 to 80% in just 40 minutes. The 2 Elex charging points here are rated at a combined maximum of 120 kilowatts, perfect for charging 2 of them at max speed concurrently. And just like what we have in Singapore, charging is settled in a relatively fast-free manner too, with the Alexa app. Our route over day 1 and day 2 continues to cut through Prachap Kiri Khan before taking us into Chumpon. Here, there is no shortage of natural sights awaiting, and for anyone that loves the sight of the sea, this is paradise. Situated in Prachap Kiri Khan, the red cliffs are perhaps not as dramatic as the name suggests, but come at sunset and the unadulterated tranquility of the place just stirs so much emotion within you. To hear the sound of the waves, to not be surrounded by crowds of people, and to look out into the distance and see a clear horizon is an experience we often don't get in Singapore. After all, road trips are not solely about the car you're driving, but also about taking the time to slow down and savor fresh sights and sounds. After visiting a GWM partner store on day 2, we challenged the good cats to a winding ascent on Chumpon Hill and end up at the Sgcarmart Sea viewpoint. We've just taken the good cats on what has been described as a hill climb challenge and have arrived at this extremely beautiful scenic point. Let's give you guys a look. While it's Phuket and Krabi that we associate most heavily with the idea of coastal Thailand, these less touristy areas that we stop by with the good cat are genuinely something to behold as well. As expected, it's not just the sense of relaxation that comes from being next to the sea, but the food that comes along with it too. Besides the wonders of nature, our time with the good cat also gives us the opportunity to get a bit of a cultural education. Thailand is a predominantly Buddhist country, but even amidst the countless temples that you find here, each has a special history of its own. As the good cats take us into the province of Nakhon Si Thammarat, we can already sense the Wat Chedi Ai Khai temple from a few km away thanks to the smattering of chicken statuettes lining the road. Residing in the temple is a statue of a boy called Ai Khai, or Egg Boy, who, in a rather complicated story involving a monk and an oath to serve the temple, apparently drowned in the temple pond. Nonetheless, his spirit is still said to linger today, granting prosperity and helping people recover lost items. As per local beliefs, if one requests something from a spirit or temple and that wish is granted, one must return to the temple and offer a gift. We hear that fighting chickens used to hold special significance in the past, but over time, there's been a switch to these brightly coloured statues instead. Later on, we visit the main Buddhist temple of Nakhon Si Thammarat, whose name we'll let Google Translate pronounce out of respect. วัดพระมหาธาตุวรมหาวิหาร The place is held with high sacred value not just in southern Thailand, but throughout the entire country, especially because its main stupa, estimated to have been built in the 13th century, is believed to contain Buddha relics. It's worth noting that as we get to this part of our drive, the open roads are morphing into narrower, busy city streets. Thankfully, the Good Cat feels really well-sized here. What's more, closing gaps in traffic is easy thanks to the immediacy of torque you get. At the same time, its regenerative brakes aren't too harsh as well. It's not just about the cultural and natural sides though. In Nakhon Sgcarmart, one highlight for us is a traditional Thai dish called Khanom Jin, fresh rice noodles in Thai cuisine made of fermented flour and served with a variety of gravies and curries. One of the final sights we see in Thailand is perhaps extremely befitting of the spirit of an EV road trip. As we make good time on our way down towards Hat Yai, what is initially described to us as a scenic windmill drive eventually reveals itself to be something else. Quite a contrast to the congested, polluted city streets we see in urban Bangkok, these wind turbines are not what we normally associate with Thailand. But they make complete sense considering that we're sort of driving along the southeastern coast. Against the slowly setting sun, they are a sight to behold too. As of 2020, wind energy only made up 2% of Thailand's power mix. Like our Good Cat, however, they are also a small step towards reducing emissions and carving out a greener, more sustainable world for the generations to come. We have reached a milestone with this trip so far, and that is because we have finally arrived at Hat Yai, which is the southernmost big city of Thailand. That means that we are very, very close to the border right now. And in fact, tomorrow we will be crossing over into Malaysia and ending up in Penang. Over the past 3 days, we've already driven more than 1,000 kilometers with the car. Today we drove 306 kilometers alone. And that means that we've actually had quite a lot of time to get acquainted with the car. In fact, on our test drive in Singapore, we don't even cover that much. So this has really been a very extended period for us to get up close and personal with the car. Malaysia awaits tomorrow, I can't wait. And in the meantime, we will also be going into more detail about what we think of the Good Cat. With Thailand in our rearview mirror, crossing the border isn't just significant because it officially kickstarts the second leg of our drive. It's also somewhat significant because it means we have to leave our Thailand-registered all-black Good Cat behind. We are saying goodbye to one Good Cat and moving on to our next one for the trip, which is in this cute, I need to get the actual name of it, but in this cute cream pastel color. No hate to black cats, we do love the color despite the superstition some may have. But in this hazelwood beige and brown dual-tone exterior, the retro-inspired design of the Good Cat is brought to life even more clearly on our Malaysian-registered car. As we slowly make our way down to Penang, it's on the inside too where the dual-tone interior really impresses us. That theme of retrofuturism continues on the inside of the Good Cat, where I think most striking on first glance is the fact that we have this dual-tone interior, this milk chocolate shade of brown matched with this cream color, and of course the stitching is even matching. We have these quilted textured patterns on the side which are soft to the touch as well. And of course, another part that plays into the retro aspect of the retrofuturism are these airplane style toggle switches which, depress with quite a reassuring amount of weight. Then the futuristic part of the Good Cat comes from the fact that we have this single panel here that houses two separate screens. You get a 7-inch display, color display for the driver's instrument cluster, as well as a 10.25-inch touchscreen for your infotainment. The graphics are honestly quite crisp, quite modern looking, and the screen is also relatively responsive to the touch, so that's a good thing. I think one thing I must comment about the Good Cat's cabin is the fact that there is a certain level of robustness to the build quality here. The buttons and switches and everything feel very well damped. Even, for example, the glove box, if I open it, it falls down as such slowly. I'll put some Puro in there. The lights turn on and off with a softly emanating glow. So that's very nice. And also the color scheme is just very consistent throughout, and that makes the inside a very nice space to be in. If I have one complaint, it's the fact that you can't adjust steering for reach, so finding your ideal driving position might not be as easy a task. And also this swivel dial here for shifting between reverse, neutral and drive, it doesn't stop when you reach reverse or drive. And I don't know, that can just be a bit confusing when you're parking and it's kind of like a high stress situation where you need to get things done a bit quickly. But yes, otherwise, very nice space. I think that Aura has done a very good job with the cabin of the Good Cat. Our arrival in Penang brings us another surprise and another technical marvel we hadn't expected. At 71.2 meters tall, the automated car park at the Grey Knight Hotel is the tallest of its kind for a hotel in all of Malaysia. It's capable of fitting 204 cars within a really small area. Watching the cars go up after we slot them in is kind of fun, but as with the more urban areas of our Thailand drive, the Good Cat size is once more appreciated greatly here. You can imagine that navigating a large SUV through the narrow driveway and then into the lift opening would be a far more stressful affair. We've left our Good Cats in the very cool hotel car park and we are exploring Georgetown by foot right now to get some food because what is a Penang stint without some good food, right? As we hit the road again towards KL, we'd be remiss not to mention how the experience of charging is like in Malaysia too. Whereas eGet might not ring a bell to us in Singapore, the name Jom Charge should certainly sound familiar. As one of the leading charging service providers across all of Malaysia, it's here at our hotel, where even the rarer ChargeMO outlet is available and can also be found along the North-South Highway. Its extensive network includes both AC and DC chargers, and the one that we charge up at in Ipoh en route to KL is rated at 120 kilowatts. That means that on paper, it can charge 2 Good Cats at the same time at full speed. Soon, we're back on the North-South Highway again. Even though we are technically quite far from Singapore, about 400 kilometers to be exact, the sight of these structures already makes us think of home. Here, we even get the rare chance to ascend the dizzying heights of the Petronas Twin Towers. Arriving at Malacca is also the point at which we officially commemorate an important milestone for our trip, 2,000 kilometers travelled in the Good Cat thus far. Amidst the handshakes, photo snaps and happy smiles, our trip is coming to an end. And of course, the biggest question all of us have been waiting for is, how does the Good Cat fare as a road trip vehicle? In fact, how does it fare in general as a car to drive and live with? With a couple of caveats, my answer to that would be fairly well actually. I think it's no surprise that the Good Cat feels right at home in the city, with its small size and its single motor sending 143 brake horsepower and 210 Nm of instant torque to the front wheels. But what's remarkable is that even out on the highway, it doesn't feel too underpowered. To give you an example, even when going up and down the mountain-ish passes through Perak, the car still holds its own very well and doesn't feel out of breath. Adding on to this is the fact that even as you're attacking 3-digit speeds, the Good Cat remains very composed and doesn't exhibit any of that sort of lift or floatiness that some compact cars are sometimes plagued with. This isn't a performance car, so the light and kind of vague steering is to be expected. But the Good Cat feels quite planted nonetheless, with its batteries helping to lower its centre of gravity. And on the whole, I think its driving character is perfectly acceptable and coherent still with its purpose as a family-friendly compact EV. More importantly, after 2,260 kilometers and 7 days of experience, the undeniable verdict is that this is quite a comfortable car to go the distance in. The front seats are supportive and cushy, and while the ride here does slant more towards the firmer side, the Good Cat ultimately feels quite settled across all manner of road surfaces. It's also pretty well insulated for something in its segment. Sure, the 228-litre boot may be a bit small for an extended road trip, but a pretty sizable wheelbase means rear passengers still get a good amount of space. Considering that it was just 2 of us, my co-driver and I, throughout the entire trip, space was plenty. On that note, let's talk practicality in terms of how far you can go on a single charge. For a small car, the Good Cat's well-sized 63 kWh battery actually gives it a good amount of range. Gunning any EV at its limit is sure to deplete its battery rapidly, but if you don't drive the Good Cat like a maniac, which we'll get to soon, getting more than 400 kilometers on a single charge is extremely realistic. That should ensure that you don't have to pull off the highway every hour for a charging station. Adding these qualities on to its distinct design and solid build quality, life behind the wheel has been extremely pleasant, and we'd say that this is genuinely a very impressive first effort by GWM and Aura for an electric compact hatchback. As plantations passes by, and as the yellow burn of the afternoon sun slowly becomes a reddish-orange glow, the roads grow even more familiar yet, and the number of cars with Singapore plates starts to grow. Before we know it, we are officially in JV! And this is our efficiency recording at the end. With our final night of rest on foreign soil, some bittersweetness is starting to sink in. This is truly the home stretch, and we are heading home right now. If there was one thing we could change about the trip, it would probably be the fact that as Singaporeans, we're not allowed to drive Malaysia-registered cars on our local roads. As such, we become passengers on the home stretch, across the second link, onto the PIE, and then finally onto Alexandra Road. As we pull up under the blue-white balloon arch outside CNC's GWM showroom, the atmosphere is truly electric. This is truly it. 3 countries and 7 days non-stop in the Ora Good Cat. Okay, so it wasn't actually 4,000 kilometers, but 2,260 kilometers in reality across the entire road trip. Also, I already have my ace co-driver to thank for helping to shoulder half of the driving on our way down from Bangkok. But a 7-day road trip, often with early starts, can still take its toll. Still, the fatigue just adds to the sense of satisfaction felt from completing the road trip. It would be dishonest for us to not note that despite the relative smoothness of the trip, there were still small issues to deal with along the way. The reality of EV road tripping is the fact that sometimes you run into unexpected circumstances, and one of them is the fact that because today is a public holiday, the charging tariffs are slightly lower, so everyone has been rushing to use the charging stations, and that's not something that we accounted for on our trip. But you can easily circumvent this with a nice drink and strategically situated cafes, which we are at right now as we're waiting to charge the Good Cat, which is somewhere down the road there. As you can see, a little black Good Cat. And we are charging again. Yes, a cross-country road trip by EV requires a certain degree of planning. But alongside that, it also requires a certain degree of patience sometimes. In particular, even more drama was awaiting on the way to KL. Bit of an interesting situation here. So as a result of the more spirited stint of driving that we mentioned just now, we managed to get our range down to 8% while we were still on the highway. And as a consequence, the car actually electronically limited the top speed. Its top speed to 80 km per hour. My co-driver's foot was down on the pedal and we could not go any faster. But that's part and parcel of EV road tripping, and also, it's a sign and evidence of the fact that there are different use cases for EVs. And this is, I guess, spirited driving across extended periods is not what you should be doing on an EV road trip. Currently switching transport for our journey, for our last 30 km to KL. Ironically, going quicker caused a delay in the schedule, and if we had actually kept our speed down, we would have most certainly made it all the way to KLCC while also reaching earlier. Nonetheless, this missing 20 to 30 km stretch, as well as the minor charging issues, do not detract from the fact that an EV road trip from Bangkok to Singapore is already a realistic possibility today. In fact, a recent announcement by Singaporean charging service provider Charge Plus promises to make things even better with a 5,000 km charging highway from Singapore to Vietnam. This should be established by 2025. Among the strategic partners coming together for Charge Plus's massive undertaking should be a familiar name by now: EGAT. Are there faster ways from city to city? Sure, but with these sorts of distances, planning is required regardless of what you're driving. As our time with the Good Cat has shown, taking the longer way home isn't always a bad idea. It's really hard to imagine us having the chance to stop by and savor all these incredible experiences we've had if it was just a speed round from Bangkok to Singapore that we were attempting. If anything, stopping to smell the roses can even be just as enriching, just as enjoyable, and of course, just as eye-opening. Just as we have visited many beautiful sights and sounds in Thailand and Malaysia, I think it's only fitting that we're ending with one of Singapore's very own icons, the Marina Bay Sands. As mentioned earlier, I've really enjoyed myself with the Good Cat. I think it's been a fantastic road trip car. These little hiccups of having an EV road trip notwithstanding. And yeah, the drive from Thailand to Malaysia was really scenic. We learned so much about the infrastructure there in terms of charging, some of its lesser seen sites, and it was a really, really enjoyable trip. But I guess just as importantly, what do you guys think about the Good Cat? Is this a car that you bring on a road trip? And more importantly, is the road trip from Bangkok to Singapore something that you do? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and share this video if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Sgcarmart and TikTok for more. For now, that's all from me from this trip. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye! We're going to talk about the screen now. Up front, the future has been described as a hill climb challenge. We have arrived at one of our scenic stopovers for the day, and that is at no cameras while we're crossing the border, so shh.